Welcome to Coffee with Joe for Tuesday, October 5th, 2010. We both just got back late Sunday night from the American Monetary Institute's Monetary Reform Conference in Chicago over the weekend. There were some very interesting people there. Steve Keen was there, presented some models. We can talk about that at some point. But the most interesting thing, Joe, you and I agreed on this, was we met Professor Kaoru Yamaguchi from Doshisha University in Japan, and when we met him the first time informally, he actually recognized us from the "You're the two coffee guys," he said. You know?
Oh, yeah, right.
Which was, it made us feel sort of famous. He had watched our videos from Japan, and he may be watching this one. He probably will see it at some point since he's the subject of it.
It's true.
But he's been doing some, he's a serious Ph.D. economist. He's got a Ph.D. from Berkeley, and he's running this green MBA program at Doshisha University in Kyoto. And he's been doing economic modeling on debt-free money system, running it out 50 years into the future. Joe, what were the results of his modeling? What were your thoughts on it?
Let's think about the situation in Japan, okay? Let's think about why somebody who's an economist in Japan, who's working on, you know, a very holistic approach to doing something about what's going on in Japan today. And what we see in this paper, which is titled by Dr. Yamaguchi, on the liquidation of government debt under a debt-free money system, modeling the American Monetary Act, Pete. Yes, a very, very significant piece of work based on a very, very historic fact, which is where Japan is at with regard to its debt burdens. And it's been, you know, Japan has kind of led the way towards debt saturation, if you will, Pete, okay? Because of all the problems that have gone on under the debt money system in Japan over the last generation or so.
The term quantitative easing was originally coined to apply to the Japanese situation because they're about 10 or 15 years ahead of us in this debt saturation situation.
Yeah, exactly, Pete. Exactly. So again, you know, I think that presents us with the rationale for why, you know, somebody from Japan who is concerned about, you know, again, the holistic view of the Japanese economy would take a look at an alternative, Pete. And that's the key. You know, it really seems to me that most, not only the mainstream economists, Pete, but even the people that are working out on the fringe are just incapable of taking into account of their work of a new way of doing things, and that is with debt-free money, okay? Now, his main objective, Pete, was with regard to the liquidation of government debt. According to the results of his model, it is very possible, Pete, very possible for Japan to eliminate its government debt over a reasonable period of time by switching to the debt-free money system. Now,
and we're not talking about involving a lot of increased taxation or anything. We're talking about the government having the money power, taking over the money power from the private banks, and treating it as a public monopoly, the money system common, as you've called it.
You know, basically what he says is that the role of money in society becomes to operate like a public utility. That is to say, it's going to provide the maximum benefit at the least cost, which is what, you know, what makes public utilities function in a, you know, kind of in a normal national economy. So, so he did that, Pete. So he took a look at the worst situation in Japan, and he said, can we, in fact, liquidate government debt? Liquidate the government debt, Pete. Just think about that, okay? And his finding was, yes, we can. And then he had to take that and say, at what cost? Because you just mentioned taxation. You know, if the cost of doing that was, you know, where they're trying to take us now, you know, the Peterson Group and the rest of those out there that don't seem to get a grasp on the fact that there's another way of looking at things, Pete, is down the austerity curve, okay, with increased taxation, fewer wages and benefits and all that other kind of stuff, deflation, basically debt deflation, debt-based deflation. So to take a look at what the other results of moving to a debt-free money system would be, Pete, okay? And what he found was all of the impacts on every economic metric that he considered were favorable and were positive, Pete. What do I mean by that? I mean that there would be stronger economic growth as a result of the switch to debt-free money, Pete.
And this is compared to a model that he ran of continuing the debt money system, right?
Right, which is included in the paper, Pete. Okay, when he did this modeling, he first ran the debt money model, okay, and looked at all these impacts, and then he looked at the debt-free money model, Pete. Okay, so yeah, so in terms of economic growth, greater. In terms of inflation, lesser. In terms of deflation, lesser.
With the debt-free money.
With the debt-free money system. So basically, the potentials for inflation and deflation have been brought to, you know, to a level of what we call economic stability, Pete. And that's what a money system is supposed to do. It's supposed to provide for economic stability. So, so inflation being lesser, economic growth being stronger, elimination of government debt being possible, employment, wage and employment benefits being greater, Pete. You know, it's really, well, let me put it this way, Pete. When I first read that Dr. Yamaguchi was going to be presenting, I had in my mind what could possibly be the best outcome of the model that he has developed. And this has measured up perfectly with my best hope for what what those results would be.
Joe, we're running out of time, and I just want to underscore a couple of things. He uses a system dynamics approach to economic modeling, which Steve Keen, it was his opinion that it was the superior economic model by 5 or 10-fold over other common economic models that are used. And even though Steve Keen didn't come fully on board with the American Monetary Act and has his own suggestions for dealing with financial instability, he was very respectful of the work that Dr. Yamaguchi was coming up with. The other thing is we have an interview. We got to interview Dr. Yamaguchi. We will be posting that as well and linking it to this video. So, and we have the link to the paper at the Doshishu University Business School website.
Pete, it's become my motive for operating right now to get this paper as widely distributed as we possibly can to the people to whom it can make a difference.
Well, let's turn the camera off and get this posted on YouTube and get the process started.
Okay, Pete.
See you soon, Joey.
Salud.